Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And we are coming to you guys live here on a Saturday morning before the Pistons end up playing the Miami Heat. This is the biggest game that is going on today, Pistons versus Heat. There's nothing going on in the background of our recording right now, Blake. But no, so we are recording right basically at kickoff, right, for Michigan, Ohio. I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you're tuning in with this live, maybe you've got us on in the background. We appreciate that. If you're a Michigan State fan and maybe hate watching it, then great. Again, we appreciate you being here. Otherwise, happy regular Saturday morning for the rest of you guys. If you're like me and you don't really care too much about college football, you're just looking forward to the Pistons getting back on the right end of things here against the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State isn't doing anything today, right? Like, I have no idea.
No, but I'm sure if you really are a deep Michigan State fan, you're probably tuning in just to hope that Michigan loses, right? I mean, is that how it works? You're a Sparty guy. Is that how that all works? Do we just
I think it does
hate one
for
another?
the great majority, but a lot of my family is Michigan people. My sister went to U of M. My brother, sister, my stepmom are actually at the game, so I hope they're warm right now. And yeah, shout out to M Go Blue 7.
He's tuning in. Yep.
You definitely have the Michigan game on right now, and who knows what'll happen. I mean, Michigan beat them last year. Ohio State's number 1, but I think they're beatable, and Michigan's been good recently. But the main focus is getting the Pistons back on the right track after 2 losses after that long winning streak.
This is one of those kind of count your blessings, right? As a Pistons fan, let's be thankful, right? We're recording here after Thanksgiving. Let's be thankful that the Pistons' first losing streak came in November, like the very end of November, right? That's pretty great. So, it's not the end of the world. I'm right here with our guy Sean Haddix here in the live chat. Says he's here for the hard times, 2 straight losses. So what? We're still the same team with the same strengths and flaws. Absolutely. This is still a really talented basketball team. They're still playing really well together. I think, that Celtics game kind of surfaced a flaw that we've all been aware of, and that just kind of came true in that moment. But the Magic game was just a hard fought battle between those two teams. The Magic end up coming out on top, and it's one of those. It is what it is. The sky's not falling. I saw there were a couple of tweets talking about, well, the Pistons lose, they end that losing streak, and then the Lions lose on Thanksgiving, and then the Pistons lose to the Magic. It's this is just a terrible week. Well, but they also extended their winning streak to 13 games earlier this week too. It's not all bad, guys. And I do think they got a good chance here to get back on the right side of it against Miami. But let's talk Celtics first. Let's talk Celtics. What did you kind of think about that? Honestly, really entertaining basketball game, even though it didn't come out the Pistons' way.
Yeah, obviously a good game. Tough for the Pistons to snap that streak. They were going for it. They tied the franchise record, and then they're going to stand alone. Doesn't happen. The other 2 times they won 13 games were 2 years when they won the title. So I don't know if that's what we're going to see this year, but people nationally are starting to talk about what if the Pistons make a run to the finals this year. So we'll see. There's a lot to figure out. And in that Boston game, I mean, we were talking a bit before we jumped on. It's just tough to beat a team that outshoots you by nearly 10 3-pointers. Boston was 20 for 43, and the Pistons were 11 for 36. Derek White obviously makes a ton of big shots down the stretch. He made 6 threes. Baylor Shireman makes 3 off the bench. And then you couple that with a 33-point game from Jaylen Brown. And I thought when the Pistons played the Celtics earlier this season, I thought they did a good job defending Cade Cunningham. And I thought that carried over a bit. I mean, Cade still had 42 points and 5 assists and 8 rebounds. So he had a great game and almost got the Pistons to tying it at the end there. But it seems like in the most recent game, Jordan Walsh, his job was just annoy Cade Cunningham. Earlier in the year, it was Hugo Gonzalez, and they had Hugo Gonzalez out there for a few minutes and just all over Cade, picking him up full court and everything. So I think the story and the main takeaway from it is the shooting. You had Cade, who made 4 threes. Duncan Robinson made 3. And then Karis LeVert was the only player to make one off the bench. He was 2 for 4. So I think that's the big thing. And obviously just tough to see the winning streak snap. It was good vibes and everything, but that's a tough team. They're 10-8 without Jason Tatum and an interesting roster. So I think overall we've been talking about the 3-point shooting throughout the year. I thought that was the story from that Boston game specifically. So hopefully it turns around, and games like that are going to happen when it's tough to find the tough to see the shots go down, and you just have to hope that they bounce back a little bit. And we'll talk about the Magic game, but they outshot the Magic, so wasn't perfect by any means, but you just have to hope it's not a long lasting trend or anything.
Yeah, and like that Celtics game was kind of interesting too, at least from that the shooting perspective, because it's not like the Pistons were really blown out of the water in terms of 3-point attempts, right? So the Magic shot 43, the Pistons 36. Yeah, or not the Magic, sorry, the Celtics shot 43, Pistons shot 36. So yes, the Celtics did shoot more than Detroit, but they made 9 more of those attempts. They made 20, the Pistons made 11. And for the Pistons, that's actually pretty much on, what they usually do. Against the Magic, they were 11 for 28. So they shot a better percentage, but they made the same number of threes. The Pistons, last I looked, I believe they're down at 28th in the league in attempts from 3, and they are at like 26th or so, 25th maybe in terms of makes. So this is just not a team that shoots the ball a lot. They play that throwback game. It's really fun to watch. So not complaining about that. But when you have nights like these past couple where Duncan Robinson just doesn't really have it, and there's no one else stepping up all that much. I mean, Cade had a really nice night from 3 against Boston, did again against the Magic too. But outside of him, so there are only 3 players in Detroit that made multiple threes. The Magic, or not the Magic. I keep doing that. Sorry, guys. The Celtics had 5. It's really tough to match up with that. So the Pistons are a little vulnerable to this, and I think that's actually honestly what made this such an entertaining game to watch, because it really was a clash of styles, right? There wasn't anything, you can't really complain about the refs in that game like maybe some people would want to against the Magic. It's not like you had 2 teams that were really just button heads. You had one team that was just playing small, fast, chuck up a lot of threes, and another team that was trying to be big and physical and beat you down in the paint. And it came down to, free throws at the end. And yeah, it didn't go the Pistons' way, but honestly, that was a really fun basketball game. I think that's part of why.
It was a fun game, and I mean, credit to the Pistons for having a chance at the end. That foul call that was called a shooting foul was super close. Honestly, could have went either way. I know the Celtics fans in the building felt a certain way about it, and then Pistons fan felt the other way. But yeah, in general, I think it is hard when, and we'll talk about this. We have a voicemail with Asar Thompson and his defense. But when the Celtics have pretty much 3 players who are able to create on their own in their starting lineup in Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White, like down the stretch, Derek White was the guy who was making all these big shots, and the Pistons just really couldn't keep up with it, which it's hard for any team to keep up with that. But I think it is, like you mentioned, a clash of styles, because the Pistons have everything running through Cade. And yeah, obviously we've been impressed with what Jalen Duren can do with the ball in his hands. And we have Jaden Ivey back in the mix and everything like that. So I think in general, it is just, there was more offense being created from the Boston side compared to the Pistons, but Cade had an incredible game. He did everything he could to get the Pistons to come away with it. I didn't take it as like a back-breaking loss, because obviously the Magic game didn't work out how we wanted, but you go into that Magic game and you just have to win to, one, get back on track, and two, if you win, you advance in the NBA Cup, which we know didn't end up happening, unfortunately. And it's tough to win all these games in a row. Like, they win 13 in a row. That's just incredible. And now 2 losses in a row, which is not the end of the world by any means. So they just need to find where they were. And I think it could take a little time with Jaden Ivey back in the mix and the rotations getting a little bit longer, and we'll see how that works out. But Boston just has a lot of guys who are able to hit big shots, and that's what they did against the Pistons on Wednesday night.
You mentioned we had a voicemail. Let's listen to that now. So this is from our guy, Sean.
Hi, this is Sean. I just wanted to ask, I just watched the Pistons-Celtics game tonight, and I noticed that Asar Thompson wasn't the primary defender on Jaylen Brown, and if I recall, it was that way in the first game against the Celtics too. And I'm wondering why Asar isn't used more, like on an every-night basis, as the primary defender against the main perimeter threat for the opposing team. I'd like to see him used that way, both for our defense and for his development. I thought he was great against Jalen Brunson in the playoffs last year, and I just want to get your thoughts on that. Thanks for your podcast. You have a great show. Thanks. Bye.
All right, and so we did, before this show started, go back and kind of confirm this with our memory as well. And we found that Sean's right. So it looked like Asar Thompson was guarding Peyton Pritchard for the most part. Now the Pistons switched a lot, so there's a lot of that stuff going on too. But it seems like that was their primary matchup. So what did you think about that decision, coaching wise, Blake, and maybe why wasn't Asar on Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, and I was curious if it was Sean Haddix in the chat, but it is a different Sean that asked this question. So shout out to both of you Seans for tuning in, and Sean for the great question. So yeah, like Wes mentioned, we were talking about this a bit, and Asar was primarily on Peyton Pritchard. And it mainly, we think, and Wes obviously respond and add to, but just putting Asar on the main point of attack guy where he can mess with what the Celtics are trying to do. I think the issue with that comes when you do have another strong creator, or in Boston's case, multiple, in Jaylen Brown and Derek White. Jaylen Brown had a good game. Derek White made all those shots down the stretch, made 6 threes. Peyton Pritchard didn't go crazy, but that said, he made 4 threes and still had 16 points. I think about it from a coaching lens as Peyton Pritchard, when there's no Jason Tatum in the mix, he's going to be one of the biggest volume 3-point shooters in the league. When you have a team like the Pistons, who is not shooting as many threes and connecting on them at as high a rate as Boston is, just trying to make that player not beat you. Again, the issue is when you do have Derek White, who makes 6 threes, and then Jaylen Brown, who has 33 points. Boston was obviously able to beat the Pistons in another way. So I think maybe if that's what JB wants to do moving forward, maybe you make an adjustment to put Asar on Brown and limit that. But does that get Pritchard going? It's an interesting use case and how he manages that. So I think overall, like, Peyton Pritchard has killed many teams, killed the Pistons before. If he makes 3 threes right out of the gate, you're sort of just searching for it and already digging yourself in a hole, which I personally think JB didn't want to happen. And the Pistons were able to stay in it. Pritchard wasn't limited totally, but Derek White scored 27, Jaylen Brown scored 33, Peyton Pritchard just 16. So I think JB wanted to take that away, Pritchard shooting away, and then have the other guys beat them and have some different defensive assignments on Brown and White, which didn't work out. So maybe we do see an adjustment from there. But in general, I think mainly that's what he's thinking, is like taking away the main point of attack guy.
Honestly, like I think it even goes a little deeper than that. Like it's interesting in the question, right? We bring up Jalen Brunson in that playoff series, and part of why that was so successful, or part of how successful that was, is I think why JB likes to do what he did against Boston quite a bit. He did it against the Magic too. Like the Pistons love putting Asar Thompson on the primary initiator. So it's not just like point of attack. It's not just put your best player on the other team's best scorer. It also, they really love Asar as that one-man press, right? They love doing that with him. They love letting him kind of run free with that. They love having Asar just disrupt the other team from getting into the offensive set that they want to do. And to his credit, he's really good at it. I think Boston's just a really tough matchup. Like Boston still, there were times where they played one guard and four wings. Like they played really small in that game, and Jaylen Brown's part of that because he's pretty physical and he can hold his own guarding up to sometimes even that 4 position. Like there were a few moments in that game because the Pistons were switching so heavily and Boston was so small out there on the court that like you had Isaiah Stewart as the primary ISO defender against Jaylen Brown. I love Stu. Stu's a great defender. He's a great switch big, but he's not really a player you want guarding Jaylen Brown on an isolation possession, up and down the floor all night, right? That's not a great matchup for him. So it was kind of pick your poison. Did you want to start Thompson on Peyton Pritchard? He's the guy that usually initiates for them, gets them in their positions, right? That's what they went for. You could have put him on Derek White, but Derek White's pretty much an off-ball 2-guard for them. Jaylen Brown moves a lot off ball as well. Like he's usually not bringing the ball up, getting a high screen and roll, right? He's usually got some off-ball movement and then gets to isolate or make something happen for himself and out of that sort of action as well. So I do just think it was a little bit philosophical, and that's what JB has wanted to do all year. We saw them do it against the Magic too, right? Who was Asar Thompson guarding most of that night? It was at the very start of it, I believe it was Desmond Bane, and then Wagner got it going a little bit, and they switched him over to Wagner, and then Bane got really hot, and they put him back over on Bane again, right? Like it's kind of Asar's a puzzle piece. He's a chess piece. You can move him around the board, you can put him where you want, and they've been kind of taking that sort of approach. They like to put him on the primary right away, and then if they need to adjust, they adjust. So I can't really fault JB for it. It's just Boston's a really tough matchup for that, I think.
Yeah, and I think what Cam is getting at here, just having Asar, like if Jaylen Brown is initiating because Asar is on Peyton Pritchard and Asar is in the corner with Peyton Pritchard, I think where you could say, okay, let's mix things up is just in general, you probably want Asar Thompson guarding the best offensive player on the other team, which it should be Jaylen Brown in that case. So if you do see the opponent make an adjustment where Pritchard isn't initiating as much because Asar Thompson is on him and Jaylen Brown is bringing the ball up, doing the primary creating and initiating, maybe you do make that switch. And we saw that a bit against Orlando, like you mentioned. So I think just in general, like a rule of thumb, and I know it's not as easy as this when you're a coach, is just put Asar Thompson on the opponent's best player and then figure it out from there. And hopefully, like sort of the philosophy of what he was doing with Pritchard, like trying to take away Pritchard's offense, take away Jaylen Brown's offense, and then maybe Pritchard beats you, which could very well happen. And then there's Derek White too. So like you mentioned, I think Boston is a tough matchup as well, but maybe we want to see Asar moved around a bit more defensively earlier.
So we'll start talking about the Magic, but let's get to this one first. This is from Sharon Dalton in the live chat. It says, next time we play either Boston or Orlando, Duncan Robinson cannot start. And so I wasn't going to go that far, but I was going to point out just before we shifted over to that Magic game that Duncan that made it difficult against Boston with how small and skilled Boston was playing. It's very difficult to say, okay, well, let's have Asar Thompson on Jaylen Brown. And then you go, well, who's going to guard Pritchard? And That's a tough question. You don't really have a smaller guard that's quick enough to stick with him. Do you want to put Tobias on Peyton Pritchard? Probably not. So you're going to kind of default into Cade.
Yeah.
Now who's on Derek White?
Yeah.
You don't want to put Tobias on him again. Like, does it have to be Duncan Robinson again? Right. Like so what they did matching Tobias down for the most part on Jaylen Brown kind of made sense just for the purpose of hiding Duncan Robinson a little bit, because what they ended up doing, Peyton Pritchard had Asar on him, Harris is on Jaylen Brown, and then Cade had Derek White. And that's the best you could do. Now, I thought that they were way too quick to switch in that game against Boston, especially with what they were doing off ball. Like, I would have loved to have some guys try to stick with guys on flare screens, try to go up over the top of that, try to deny it, just maybe give up the curl to the back door or something and hope that Jalen Duren can make a play on the back end, because they were killing Detroit from three. So I would have rather not had the switch there at all. But the switch did get him into some issues. Duncan Robinson was getting hunted by Jaylen Brown, especially in the second half. So there's a lot of that. But yeah. So Cam just said the Boston content creator made a whole video breakdown about them hunting Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert. Yes, they were, and they were very good at it. And I think that this actually goes back to the Pistons playoff series last year. They are pretty quick to just accept the switch, and I do wish that they would fight that a little bit more, right? Only switch Asar Thompson off somebody if it's like he really can't get through that screen or someone's really caught up on the screen. But, we're talking about November basketball, and at this point, it's more general principles, right? They are doing some strategizing in that way for specific teams, but it's more you've got your defense the way you want to play it, and that's how the Pistons want to play it right now. I just thought that the Celtics did a great job taking advantage.
Yeah, and what Sean mentioned too is sort of what I was thinking. If you don't put Duncan Robinson in the starting lineup based on matchups, who do you go to? I think in theory, like, will Jaden Ivey start for this team eventually? I know he had a really rough game against Orlando and against Boston too, for that matter, and he's still getting going and everything. But if it's not Ivy because you're worried about what you're giving up defensively, then who are you putting in there? Is it Ron Holland? Are you starting Stu next to Duren? Do you put Javonte Green in there? I think you're giving up some sort of like offense. So it's really just it's like a tap dance on what you want to do. And I think Duncan was in there for the shooting, like he always is, and making things a little bit easier for Cade when Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson are out there. So it's just a tough one, and the Boston matchup was tough specifically.
Yeah, and like, look, Duncan Robinson's vital offensively. You said that they give up a little bit of something if they have to like move him to the bench in a certain matchup. Like, it's a lot of something. Duncan Robinson, look at the Magic game, all right? Let's play that same game. Who made multiple 3-point attempts? Cade and Duncan Robinson. That's it.
Yeah.
You take that out of the starting lineup. You remove Duncan Robinson and you put Jaden Ivey in there. He was 1 for 1 from 3. So let's just, all right, you've got Harris that was 1 for 4. Ivey, in theory, 1 for 1. Duren 0, Asar 0, and then Cade 4 for 7. That's not great. You need Cade to have space.
Yeah.
So having Duncan Robinson is at least helpful for that. Cade's doing a good job with his shot. He went 4 for 7. He had a nice shooting game against the Celtics as well. I think that's helping out guys like Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren when they're operating with the ball in their hands, which is great. You love to see that out of Cade, but they need Duncan out there because they need a sharpshooter, and they just don't have anyone else. But let's talk about that Magic game. We'll kind of slip forward because that really was a game of two teams that play the same physical style, kind of button heads for 48 minutes to try to see who's going to come out on top. I do think it's interesting to note that the Pistons started out strong in both of these games, and it kind of faded there as that starting lineup was pulled out of it. And I hate single game plus minus, but if you look at the single game plus minus for the Pistons, the only reason I'm bringing it up, every single starter is a big time positive. Every single bench player is nearly in double digits. The only non-double digit negative bench player in single game plus minus here is Paul Reed and Dennis Jenkins. And look, I love Danis. He did not have a nice night, in my opinion, against Orlando. I thought he struggled. So, it's a little fluky there. But point being, bench really struggled. Orlando made huge strides in that game when the Pistons sat their starters, and their starters were what kept them in it at the start and then down the stretch. So that's something. But, what else were you seeing out of that Magic game?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't love single game plus minus either, but I think it is important, especially in a close game and a game you lose by 3 points when nearly your whole bench and you're going into a deep rotation now is minus double digits. But other than that, like the difference between the starters and the bench, I think just in general, getting down to it, it's this team, and it's only 2 games. So again, the sky is not falling. They have an opportunity to bounce back the night that we're recording this, but I think this team just needs to figure out a way to keep the offense flowing when Cade is off the floor. And I mean, Cade played 40 minutes against the Magic, so that's only 8 minutes that you're trying to figure it out. But the game changed a ton when Cade was off the floor. And Ivy only played 10 minutes. He's still coming back from injury. He missed nearly a year. He's still getting used to everything. So maybe once he's more in the groove of things, he's the answer. But I just thought the offense really struggled when Cade wasn't out there. And I mean, it wasn't perfect when he was there too. Cade had a great game himself, but the rest of the team, like Duncan Robinson, like you mentioned, didn't really have it. Duran was good. He just didn't, didn't have a lot of shot attempts. So when every team knows that Cade is clearly your best player and they're taking advantage of those minutes when he's off the floor and getting out on these massive runs, it's just hard to get back into it. And credit to the starting lineup that was able to do it and really give them a chance to win at the end. There was that possession with all the offensive rebounds and then the free throws and everything. And Duncan's last second shot, like, did he have more time to do something else, get the ball elsewhere? But I think just in general, moving forward, if this like starters bench is such a big delta, you just need to figure out a way to keep the offense moving when Cade Cunningham is off the floor.
A big part of the offense continuing to move, even when the defenses have been sending so much at Cade over that winning streak, was Jalen Duran, right? I mean, we have been talking about the leap that he had made offensively. And I think it's pretty easy to, like, you look at the box score here from the Celtics game, from the Magic game, you go, he played pretty well. He was pretty efficient from the floor, but against the Magic, it was 16 points. And he had 12 rebounds against the Celtics, right? I think it was 10 points and he maybe had 17 rebounds, something along those lines. Those are solid nights, right? So you want to be careful. You don't want to compare or complain about that too much. But I do really think that these past 2 games, he has been guarded differently than what he had been being guarded. It seemed like, especially with the Magic, they were really paying attention to him when he had the ball. And that's going to happen, right? I mean, he kind of established himself as a threat when he's got the ball in his hands. I think that's a big reason why he had 5 turnovers against the Magic. We saw a couple of those. They ran someone at him in transition, and he misses Jaden Ivey, right? He threw the pass a little bit behind him. He should have put it out in front, or just hit Karis LeVert that was maybe a step behind his left shoulder and gone for the alley-oop, which is what he was clearly trying to do, right? Like, there's an adjustment. He's going to have to adjust. But I do think, like, you look at 8 shots against the Magic, he's got to find a way to get more than that. At this point, you're looking at the Pistons roster. During that win streak, what was working so well, he's the second star. Mm-hmm. So he's getting guarded like a second star now these past 2 games, right? You got to figure out a way. So I have confidence that he will. I think he can, right? But that, to me, that's what they really need. That's what they were missing in this game. They were missing somebody else other than Cade that could really step up and make a play, make something happen. And in the past, it had been Duran. And now he's being guarded a little bit differently, and they're sending more help his way. He's not reading it as quickly. It's just going to take a minute. I think he can overcome it, but this is a real big learning experience, I think, for him, because they need more out of him. They need more than 8 shot attempts out of JD if they're going to really get back on another winning streak here. I think he's got to be that guy that he was and he's been all year. And I think he can. He's just got to figure it out.
Yeah, and maybe it is something as simple as just letting him know to be more aggressive. I mean, he already is super aggressive, but letting him know just to, if you are seeing different defenses being thrown at you, still try to find a way to get to the rim and get your shots up, because with how big he is, how strong, how athletic, he can just take it over or through a lot of players in this league. So, and I mean, credit to him, he was probably trying to make the right basketball play. But when you are, like you mentioned, in all those wins, the second star next to Cade Cunningham, like, you should be trying to get your own a little bit and passing up some of those passes. And we know the great vision he has, so he should still keep that in his game, certainly. But when he is so effective near the rim and just like from the field in general, trying to get a few more shot attempts a game, and he's been great from the line all season. He was 6 for 6 against the Magic. Like, you can get to the line a little bit more too, and that's what he was doing during the win streak. So I think it is an adjustment, because the league is certainly taking notice of this leap that Jalen Duren is having, which, credit to him. And like you said, I think he's more than capable of finding ways to get around it. But yeah, it will be a bit of a learning period and trying to do different things to figure out how to get around it if he is getting more attention. But hopefully that more attention makes things a little bit easier for Cade Cunningham and the rest of the offense too.
And I really, so I think you're right. Making the right basketball play. I do think he deferred a little bit to Tobias Harris against the Magic. It's hard to argue with that. Harris had a nice night, right? 18 points. He was 8 of 15 from the floor. He played really well, but he needs to be more aggressive. Duren needs to be a little bit more aggressive. I would love it if maybe JB can help him out a little bit. Let's get those 15-foot ISOs again. Let's have some of those 15-foot face-ups come in and clear out a side and let Duren try to make a play. Like, let's just kind of get him back into that groove that we haven't really seen these past 3 games, right? Because Indiana, he didn't really do it all that much either, even though they don't have the size. So this is all of this actually is probably just about finding balance, right? Harris is back, Ivy's back. They're playing a larger rotation than they were before, so everyone's kind of feeling out one another, right? But I think you kind of establish early on in the year what you need the hierarchy to be. It worked really well. So if maybe it's JB drawing up something, maybe it's Cade getting the ball to Duren in one of his spots, right? But something I think early in this Miami Heat game to get him going a little bit again would be really smart, just to try to get ahead of it. Get the message back there, like, no. We need you to be that dude. We need you to be second on the team in shot attempts, maybe third, right? But you got to be up there. You can't be at 8.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to Jalen Duren. Like, he's still finding a way to have really good games, even if he is deferring to other players a little bit. So it's just about going and finding ways to create for yourself a little bit more. And he's being talked about in all-star conversations, which is very, very well deserved. And I think if he keeps up what he's doing at just a little bit more offensive output, when you look at the games of this past week that we're talking about, he'll be right there. And he's a mismatch for a lot of the teams that the Pistons are going to play, even if they do have a solid big, especially on the offensive end of the floor. So I hope to see JD take a few more shots, because he's been at 8, 10, and 10 these past few games. So get somewhere in that 15 range, like you mentioned, Tobias Harris was at against the Magic, and I think it would be super solid for the offense as a whole.
All right, so this is interesting. So this is from Sharon Dalton in the live chat again, and I've seen actually quite a bit of this. So she says that Dennis Jenkins needs to get more minutes. What have you thought out of? Well, one, we could just talk about that 12-man rotation thing in general these past couple of games, but specifically with Dennis, like, does he need more time, or has he? This is a tough question to ask because he's only played in the first half 2 games in a row. And is that one of those situations where he played in the first half because that was the plan and they weren't intentionally not going to bring him back in the second half? Or did he play in the first half and JB's kind of go 12-man in the first half, get a feel for who's playing well, and then use that as the 10-man on the back half? So it's an interesting question. I think it's pretty difficult. So I'm curious your thoughts here with Jenkins.
Yeah, so the past we'll take the past 4 games since Ivy's been back. 13 minutes against the Bucks, which was Milwaukee's return, and then 8 minutes apiece in the games this week against Indiana, Boston, and Orlando. We knew when Ivy was going to come back, it was obviously going to eat into Jenkins's minutes and the other injuries as a whole working through themselves. It's such a tough question because I don't think that you're just going to be like, Ivy needs more time, let's take some of his minutes and give them to Jenkins. I do wonder if there's a way to shorten the rotation a bit elsewhere. Like maybe it's Javonte Green taking some of those minutes and splitting them between Jenkins and Ivy. Sure, like Green has had his moments and he's a good defender. But when we're talking about trying to find offense off the bench, I think Ivy and Jenkins alongside LeVert are your best options there. So maybe you do value that a bit more. I think Jenkins's play over that stretch where he was just had that incredible run deserved him to stay in this rotation and just not get DNPs and everything. And I think what we'll credit him is, yes, he's had a rough week, and the whole bench kind of has since Ivy's return and figuring things out. But he just has to be there defensively, which we know he can do. He's a good defensive guard and he can shoot the ball. He can score the ball at all 3 levels, really. So if he can continue doing that, he hasn't had much of an opportunity with the minutes he's had since Ivy has come back. I think I would be open to him having more minutes. I think he certainly deserved it after his start to the season. I'm just not necessarily sure it's going to come at the expense of Jaden Ivey, which I think is the most logical thing when you look to try and get Dennis Jenkins more minutes.
Yeah, and I do think we have to understand he played well in 8 minutes against the Pacers. Okay, he did. He had 5 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, only 1 turnover, and he actually had a block in that game too. I thought he was impactful in the first half against the Pacers. It was fun to watch. He played pretty well against Milwaukee. He had that really dumb behind the back, under the basket turnover, and JB gave him a good talking to on the bench after that one, and deservedly so. But outside of that, I thought he played pretty well against the Milwaukee Bucks. Against the Celtics, 8 first half minutes, 0s across the board. He's got 1 assist. Doesn't take a shot attempt, has no rebounds, no turnovers, nothing else, no blocks, nothing. And then against the Magic too, it's pretty much 0s across the board. He takes 2 shot attempts, misses them both, 1 rebound, 1 assist. And again, all of these, all 3 of these were in 8 first half minutes. So if you want to make an argument against the Pacers, he needed to play more in the second half. I'm with you. I think he was playing well, but it's really difficult to make that same case against the Celtics and the Magic. I love Dennis as much as the next fan, right? You guys know, we've been listening to this podcast since the summer league. At least we've been talking him up, right? I think he's a great great player, good piece to have, and he's a perfect fit here in Detroit. But we also have to be honest, he's not played well against the Celtics and the Magic. And like you said, Blake, the bench hasn't played well either. So I do think that there's something to balance out here with that. It is really tough in 2 4-minute stretches to really make a big impact, right? It's tough to get into a rhythm when you're not playing that many minutes. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe you got to pare this rotation down a little bit, like you said, or maybe not. I mean, you could also look at Dennis and say, hey, man, you got to be more impactful. Those are 8 minutes. Go be a spark plug, right? This was one of the questions that we were kind of talking through at the back end of that win streak. Like, is Dennis a guy that needs the volume? Because he's probably not going to be a volume player as we progress into the season. I still think that the question or the answer to that question remains to be seen. I think that he's not a volume guy, but so far when the volume ticked down, so too did the efficiency and the level of impact. So that's something to watch here. And again, I really like Dennis. In general, I agree. I'd like to see him play more. He's fun to watch when he's out there, but it's just tough to say he's really earned a lot of second half minutes against the Celtics and the Magic when he wasn't impactful when he was out there.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's not fully specific to Dennis too. Like we've been talking about the entire bench, but it's 2 games in a row, and I know we're doing a lot of single game plus minus talk, but it's 2 games in a row where the whole bench was a negative, and you don't have anyone in the starting group that was a negative. I mean, Cade and Tobias were even against the Celtics. And then you go to the Magic game, and it was basically the opposite for the Magic. Like their bench was sort of the game changer. Anthony Black was good in his minutes, Jonathan Isaac and Tyus Jones as well. So I think it's just the second unit has some figuring out to do now that Ivy is back, and that's probably on JB just shortening the rotation a little bit. And who is that going to come at the expense of? But at the same time, like Ron Holland hasn't had a good week either, and he only got 9 minutes against the Magic. I'm sure we all want to see more minutes for Ron Holland if the play warrants it, but I just see in these past 2 losses specifically, JB was trying to keep things afloat while the starters and specifically Cade Cunningham was off the floor. It obviously hasn't worked out well, so you have to make an adjustment, and I think the most logical way to do that is shortening the rotation. I hope that doesn't mean Dennis is fully out of it, because I think he brings an element to this team that not a lot of other players can provide. But yeah, he just has to make great use out of the minutes that he has. And he's a young player. I mean, older prospect coming out. So he's still figuring things out too. But in general, like the bench as a whole just needs to find ways to not let up big runs. And it starts defensively, and hopefully you can keep it up on offense. And Dennis is one of the few players in the second unit that has been good offensively this year. So I think that deserves him to at least have some minutes in there.
Well, speaking of the bench, right, we got a couple of questions here about the bench's newest piece, Jaden Ivey making his return, obviously against the Milwaukee Bucks, and he's played since then. So we got one here from Pistons fan 11 and one from Cam 52113, both about Jaden Ivey. So I'll just kind of read them out, and then let's just talk about what we've seen out of him and what our takeaways are from all of this. So Pistons fan 11, do you think they need to let Jaden Ivey play shooting guard while he works back into playing shape? That way they would just basically need him to hit some threes, spread the floor. Cam says people are being too hard on Jaden Ivey. He just needs some time to ramp up. He's only played 4 games. Maybe they should have given him some more time in the G League. So what have you seen out of Jaden Ivey here this week? And, what are just kind of your general thoughts on him as he's getting his sea legs back under him?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with Cam. I think it's a ramp up period, and we shouldn't we shouldn't panic or anything like that. But at the same time, when you're trying to win games, and this winning streak, this incredible start to the season has really leapt you into a different conversation and potentially competing and contending for the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe the NBA Finals this year. You don't have a lot of time for ramp up periods, unfortunately, which is hard. But Jaden Ivey is one of the young players that this team is trying to figure out how they fit in the long term. When he misses so much time, it's obviously going to take, he's not going to come back and immediately just shoot the leather off the ball and go crazy. And I think we've seen that at times, but we've also seen him play well. Like, he was good in that Indiana game. I thought, on the other hand, especially his first stretch, was really rough against the Magic. But in general, like, I think we just need to give him a little bit more time. I don't think it's at put him on the shelf level or even like send him back to the G League now. I think you give him a few more games to see what's going on. But it's tough because maybe he wasn't ready, but at the same time, how ready is he going to be for NBA action when he missed all that and you have to have some sort of a ramp up period? I think that's what he's going through right now. And I don't think this like tough stretch and tough couple games will take him out of the rotation or anything like that. I think they want him potentially to be in the starting lineup, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with him in the long term. Obviously he has to play well to eventually maybe be a starter or be that first guy off the bench or just get more minutes in general. But yeah, I'm not ready to panic about Jaden Ivey. I know it would take some time. It's certainly disappointing and everything, especially when have two close losses that were big and you wanted to win. But yeah, I'm giving it a few more games until I start to be concerned in the slightest, I guess.
I might be giving it a few more weeks, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone needed any additional reason to give Jaden Ivey a little bit of grace here, like, try to understand what he's being asked to do. When he went down with that injury almost a year ago, he was the starting shooting guard. He was the second option. He was the backup point guard. He was playing over 30 minutes a night. Like, Jaden Ivey was not just like a vital rotation piece, not just a starter. He was kind of like the guy other than Cade. That's what they were trying to get him to be, right? That's the role he was playing. Well, when he comes back now, what's his role? He's playing 10 to 15 minutes a night as he's ramping up. He's coming off the bench, and he's not even always the backup point guard, right? Sometimes they got Danis out there with him. Sometimes they let him split handling duties with Karis LeVert, occasionally Asar Thompson too. Like, it's a completely different role. He doesn't have time to get into the flow of the game right now, and he's already rusty, right? He's coming off the bench, and it's basically be the microwave, right? Go be a spark plug, give us some energy, use your athleticism, all that good stuff, which he's plenty capable of doing. And like you said, he had a nice night against the Pacers. It's just, not only are they asking him to knock the rust off, right? Get back into playing shape, get your feel back, have the chemistry going with the team again. Like, he's got new guys that he's got to play with. He's in a new role. This is a really tough ask for Jaden. So I think you got to give him plenty of grace, plenty of time just to see where he's actually at. And, let's not also forget that was a pretty traumatic injury. He snapped his shin in half. It was gruesome. It was terrible. So that's not an easy thing to come back from either. And it's not like we've not noticed that, right? He doesn't look as explosive. Now, he had no tendon or ligament damage or anything like that. So he will be. It's going to take a minute, right? He's going to have to get his legs back underneath him. So yeah, I'm not worried about Jaden Ivey at all. I think the fact that we even had a game like we saw against the Pacers where he plays really well, and it's, he's a spark plug. He is that guy that you kind of remember him being last year, that's great, right? That's more than I was banking already at this point when he's played, 4 games total. Yeah, I think you give Jaden a month here. Think about how long we had to wait for Asar Thompson to kind of get back into the role that he was going to be down the stretch of last season. It wasn't just like he showed up to a game and all of a sudden it's the Asar we know today, right? It took a minute, and they were playing him low minutes off the bench too for a couple of weeks before Ivy went down last year. So I think this is just the same kind of thing to me.
Yeah, that's a good point about the new role, and it just gets me thinking. It's not even only that. It's not like he's playing with an entirely new roster, but the roster looks a lot different from the time that he last played basketball. And there are these there's some shooters, and you add Karis LeVert into the mix, who potentially could take some on-ball reps away from him. So I think he's getting used to playing with the new faces on the team, as well as in the new role as well. So I think it'll take some time. I'm not ready to panic. I think we'll see his minutes gradually go up over the next few games if he's feeling well and he's ready for it. And to be determined where those minutes come from. But all in all, I'm ready to give it some time. And if he is going to come off the bench for a while, I think he's a great option to add into the mix with Karis LeVert. And then if Dennis Jenkins is still a part of the rotation as well, it'll just take some time, like we've been saying.
All right, so we got a question here from Double Hezi PL, and hopefully I'm kind of summarizing this all up correctly. It was part of a longer message there in the DBB comments, but that says essentially, how good is this Pistons defense, and is it at a level where they can maintain some of the highs that we've seen out of them from tip to final buzzer? Right. So he brought up there the going to work Pistons. And sometimes there was a switch, right? They just turn it on, and then all of a sudden you really couldn't do anything. We've seen some of that here with this group as well. So one, what's the ceiling of this Pistons defense right now? They're truly they're top 5 in the league in most metrics that you would look at. Is that sustainable? And do you think that they could even pick it up to another level, even above where they've been?
I think it is sustainable when you look at just how young this team is and how they've seen this success over that winning streak and just in general over the start of the season. It is a little difficult when you Jalen Duren has been much better defensively this year, but not perfect by any means. And you have him and Asar Thompson as really your defensive quarterbacks, I guess, in the starting group. And then Tobias Harris, yes, he's getting older, but he's been solid as a defender too. And then off the bench, you have one of the best rim protectors in the league and Isaiah Stewart. And then whatever Ron Holland grows into, and Javonte Green has been good off the bench as well. So I think it is sustainable. And honestly, it really has to be for the style that this team plays when you're not shooting the ball as much as many other teams in the league, and you're trying to win games in the paint and on the defensive side. And yes, maybe there will be some nights where Duncan Robinson is unconscious from 3, like we've seen already. Tobias Harris adds some, and you get some help from the bench too. But I think in general, we've seen, they are a good defensive team. It's just about keeping that up and finding ways, like the question we were talking about earlier with Asar Thompson guarding Peyton Pritchard over Jaylen Brown. Are there small adjustments you can make from an assignment perspective that will help this team keep things up? Because in general, I think if they're not defending at the level that they have been, they'll still be a good team, but they won't be able to reach the level that I think plenty of people think they're capable of after this incredible start.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I think that the defense is pretty sustainable as well. It's fun because the defense right now it's really JB's scheme, how he wants them to play, and then chemistry. Because like you said, you go up and down this roster. Like Duncan Robinson's a bad defender. Ron Holland he's got a lot of potential. He's not a good defender yet. He's way too inconsistent to really get that good defender label. Jalen Duren on a good night is neutral. Cade Cunningham can every now and then be a good defender for what he is, but you're not going to ask him to have that kind of output on that end of the floor every night because you also need him to put up 42 points against the Celtics to have a shot, right? So anything you're getting from Cade on that end is gravy. It's really good. So that's exciting. Go to the bench. Like Ivy's never been a great defender. Karis LeVert, he's okay, right? I think he's pretty solid in ISO situations, but he does sometimes get lost off ball. Tobias Harris is a great communicator and he's pretty physical, but he's not, like you don't want to have him locking down the other team's best player or anything like that. He can get beat pretty good too. So it's really just Asar and Stu that are your good defenders. And they both happen to be all NBA defense caliber guys, but it's not a truly personnel driven defense to me. This is chemistry and this is the scheme that JB wants them to play. And it's all working really well. So you could sometimes it's fun to imagine, like, what if they just get another real 3-and-D guy, right? Not a star. I don't care about a superstar, but just someone that's actually a very good defender and also a very good 3-point shooter. And you could probably count on a couple of hands the number of those players that are out there. They're in high demand, so it's not like it would be cheap to go and get. But setting all that aside, I think that they are that player away from being an elite defense. They're already among the league's best. I think that they could be special. Like thinking OKC, the output that they're doing defensively, I think the Pistons can get there. They're just really close. They just don't have the horses yet. But even what they're doing with the players that they have is incredibly impressive. So I'm excited. I think they're real. I think they're the real deal defensively.
Yeah, and if you do bring someone in like that, it makes the question of the chess match of hiding Duncan Robinson pretty much a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because you put him on, let's just look at the Celtics, you put him on Tristan Da Silva maybe against the Celtics, Jordan Walsh, like a player who isn't going to give you a lot of offense, and you have Asar Thompson and player to be named later on the two primary options on the other team, and then you can make things work, and you can put Tobias Harris, if he doesn't go out in a trade, on someone else as well, and he can be impactful, and it makes things easier for Cade. It makes the Duncan Robinson question easier. So we'll see what happens. There's obviously a lot of time before the Pistons could or could not make a trade. And they'll be able to learn a lot too before the trade deadline and before a lot of players become trade eligible too. So I think that'll be beneficial as well as we're getting through the season here.
All right, Blake, last question. Let's wrap it up on this one. This is from our guy, Epic Wayne. Does it make sense to consolidate some of these players and use a shortened rotation? So what have you thought about this week with JB going to the 12-man rotation? On the one hand, Paul Reed, Dennis Jenkins, Javonte Green, these guys have all been playing extremely well during that win streak. On the other hand, it does seem like there's a bit of a, maybe the word's a rhythm issue. It seems like this team is struggling to find some rhythm when they go away from their starting lineup. And that's true when it's an all bench lineup. That's true when it's a mixed lineup between starters and bench guys. So is that due to the 12-man rotation? Is there something that maybe JB can do to fix it while keeping a 12-man rotation? Like what have you saw and what have you thought about this expanded night-to-night rotation out of Bickerstaff?
Yeah. So do we think to consolidate just means like taking some players who are getting minutes out of
That's how I'm taking it.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, if it is like if it is a trade question, like making a consolidation trade, I think that's another conversation, which could be a valid argument in terms of how you get better from that. But it's tough right now. Like, I think Dennis Jenkins has certainly played his way into keeping himself in the rotation, at least in the short term. You add Jaden Ivey back. Javonte Green was good at the start of the year. And Paul Reed, like, I don't think Paul Reed should be getting minutes every night, but I think he's a great piece to have. Like, he's always been on this roster. If Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart are both healthy and one or both of them get into foul trouble, and Paul Reed was good himself during that win streak. So I think you do need to find a way to shorten the rotation a bit, but it's tough. Like, you're going like 11 or 12, and do you want to get that down to 9? Like, that probably means Javonte Green's not playing, Paul Reed's not playing, and then who's the odd man out? I think the conversation is Dennis Jenkins, and you're probably still going to play Karis LeVert, but he's the only other one that I could even see being in that conversation. So I do think the rotation needs to be consolidated and shortened up a little bit and not go as deep, because it's hard to find that rhythm like you mentioned. But I think they might need a little bit more time to figure out what that rotation will be. And it depends on a lot. It depends on what Dennis Jenkins does with his minutes, how Jaden Ivey is progressing. And if you like give Ivey a little bit less minutes and give some of those to Dennis, whatever it might be. All in all, I think JB's job is really tough right now. And the next few weeks are going to be a lot about figuring this out, because I'm sure he wants to go shorter. I know, I think it was Sean in the chat mentioned JB talking about the extended rotation, and I didn't see that. I saw it, but I haven't listened to the full comment. So I don't want to go into like what he was thinking, but in general, in terms of JB as a coach, I think he would want a shorter rotation. It's just about figuring out what that is.
Yeah. And like, this is so tough to me too, because the benefit of being able to go so deep is it's legit. Like, if you have the players that are capable of doing this, that are capable of being impactful in like 8 to 12 minutes a night, right? In really short bursts, it doesn't matter. They don't need, if they're not a starter, they don't need to get that really long run time to get going. If that's the guys that you have and you can make this work and you can be a good team running a 12-man rotation, then, that's wear and tear off Cade. Right. He doesn't have to play 40 minutes a night. Now, maybe you could get him down to like 34, right? You keep him fresh for the playoffs. That's exciting. Same thing with everyone in that starting lineup. Duren too. Stu's had some injury issues in the past, right? If you could kind of like play him over 20, but like less than 28, and it works because Paul Reed is really effective, great, right? But the other side of that is it's really hard to do, because it's really hard to do. Like, it's hard to pull this off for a reason. There aren't that many players that are really capable of that specific type of role. And we've seen Dennis Jenkins struggle with it. I think we've seen Paul Reed to an extent struggle with it. I thought he was impactful defensively against the Magic, but that was in more injury relief. That wasn't planned. I don't think he was really supposed to be getting that kind of burn there against Orlando. So, Javonte Green has kind of gone into a slump too. He was really good early on, but he was playing more early on. He wasn't getting 11 minutes. He was getting up close to 15 to 20. So it's going to be a really tough balance. I'm with you. I think you keep giving it a little bit of time. See if you have the guys that can make this work, because if you do, then the upside's huge, right? If you could save Cade for the playoffs, if you could save Stu and Duren for the playoffs, if you can slowly ramp Jaden Ivey up so he doesn't have any re-aggravations and he's just ready and good to go for the stretch run in March, right? That's huge if you can pull it off. And then you get to the playoffs and you pare it down to a 9-man rotation, and it's exactly what we've all wanted to see, right? But if it starts to come at the expense of some wins, now now it's a different conversation. And if you don't have the players that can really make this work, then maybe you do need to bring it back down to a 10 or a 9-man rotation and just start stacking up those wins again. I don't know what the right choice is going to be. And I understand why JB hasn't moved off it, even after the Celtics game and the Magic game, I don't think looked too promising. Even though the Pacers game did look a little bit more promising. So I'm with him. I understand wanting to try it out, give it a little bit of time. I just hope maybe if we go 2 weeks here and we're coming up on Christmas, it doesn't seem like it's working, probably need to pull off, right? Probably need to change it up just a little bit. That's where I'm at with it right now. It's worth figuring out because the guys did play really well over that win streak, but you may have to adjust. We'll see.
It's frustrating for sure. Like, I've had my questions specifically in that Magic game when it was pretty glaring. But in general, this is a good problem to have. It just speaks to the depth of this roster. And this team was deep last year, and it was one of their calling cards. And it's the same thing this year. And it's just, like you said, if a deep rotation, extended rotation starts leading into more and more losses, you definitely have to do something. But in general, the depth that this team has is a positive. And hopefully it seems like I don't think Dennis Jenkins would necessarily be off put if he was all of a sudden out of the rotation. I think he knows his role. I think a lot of the players on this team, you could say the same thing about. Karis LeVert, maybe a different story because of where he is in his career. But in general, I don't think anyone will be super, it'll mess with the chemistry if the rotation is shortened. So yeah, I'm willing to wait it out for a couple more games here as well. But at the same time, if these losses start compounding and they find themselves on an even bigger losing streak after that long winning streak, there certainly has to be some conversations. But in general, I'm happy with the depth that this team has because it's obviously night and day from what we were watching a couple years ago.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, right? Like, great problem to have. They have 12 guys that could conceivably get real rotation minutes. And, Sasser's injured still, right? So a couple of people mentioned Sasser in the live chat here. When he gets healthy, that's up to 13. Sasser's an NBA player, right? And we haven't really seen even like Isaac Jones or either outside of Dennis, like Tolu. He's borderline. You might be able to get some minutes out of him as a center one of these days too. So the Pistons are really deep. It's a great problem to have. I think even in the worst case scenario, right? This 12-man thing doesn't work. You have to go back to a 9 or 10-man rotation. With some level of certainty now, hey, if someone goes down, they've got someone behind them that can step up and give you good NBA minutes. And that's really awesome. So I don't know, I don't know if it's Dennis, if Dennis falls out of the rotation until maybe like a deadline move or another injury. Maybe it's, God forbid Ivy re-aggravates something. Who knows how this is all going to shake out, right? But it's certainly worth figuring it out now. And it's great to be in this position where you look at the roster and you go, there are options for JB if the 12-man thing doesn't actually end up holding water over the long run. So it's a good spot. They're in a really good spot, and I'm going to call my shot. I think tonight against the Heat, they're going to get back in the win column. So if you guys are listening to this after that game, you're welcome. Hopefully I didn't drink that.
And how many players are going to play? Call that
11. 11, I think, is Paul Reed.
He
wasn't supposed to play against the Magic, and then Isaiah Stewart got 5 fouls by the third quarter. So I think it's 11.
I'm with you there. But yeah, it'll be tough for the Pistons to win on a road back-to-back after a tough loss the night before, another one a few days ago. But hopefully it provides them a jolt and everything. So we'll see, because they're obviously in the locker room not happy with. They weren't even happy. Like, you saw how upset Cade was after that Pacers win, and the team just tied a franchise record. So I think that says a lot about where this team is, who they are. Like, we all know what they are, but we'll go ahead and close us out there. I don't know if M Go Blue is still with us, but if so, we'll
Hopefully
get him.
He's having a good time.
We'll get him back to the game. It looks like Ohio State is up 10-6 right now in the second quarter. So a lot of time left, and it looks like Michigan even took a lead into the second quarter. So we'll see. But shout out to everyone for joining in, and shout out to Sean for using the voice line. Reminder, anyone can call that number, ask a question, and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.